All right. It's Kevin Garcia, aka the Puerto Rican Kid KG, and this is Fight Hype. And the man in front of me needs no introduction, but just in case you're confused, it's the one and only Hall of Famer Jim Lampley. Thank you for being with us.
My privilege. Nice to meet you, Kevin.
Same. Hey, you know what? I appreciate that. I'm definitely gonna cut that out and reuse it. It's an honor. Thanks, Jim. But let's get to it. We're in Gleason's. Obviously here for Haneys Garcia. So just let's start with the obvious, right? There's been a lot going on. I think the events kicked off yesterday. Rather eventfully. What are your thoughts on some of the promo or maybe mental state currently of Ryan Garcia and all the kind of things that have been surrounding him?
Well, as you watch what Ryan Garcia does and the elements that show up on his social media exposures going into the fight, if you're an old guy like me who comes from a different world, you're kind of inclined to say, this doesn't look like positive preparation for a boxing match. This looks like distraction. This looks like somebody who's devoting a lot of emotional energy to things that have nothing to do with how he succeeds in the ring. But it's a brave new world. I am definitely a relic of a different time. I have no social media presence. I don't read social media or follow social media. I do understand that for prize fighters who are individual entrepreneurs, it's a way of selling themselves, and any way that they can sell themselves is good because it helps to build box office and interest and pay-per-view buys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I understand that part of it, but it's difficult to discern from the behaviors you see, like pushing Devin yesterday, and like somehow getting co-opted away from throwing the first pitch at a Mets game. It's just difficult for me to understand how any of that helps him, and maybe he's just letting off steam.
Do you think that any of his antics have, or his actions, have hindered the success of this fight potentially?
The success of this?
Yeah, in terms of
you mean
pay-per-view
turning
buys.
off some people who say, I don't care, I don't want to watch it?
Or
I
maybe
think there are
doubtful.
probably some people who, because of this kind of stuff, don't take him seriously. And if they don't take him seriously, then that diminishes the urge to buy the pay-per-view or buy a ticket and come to the fight. Ideally, in great fights, both guys are seen as serious competitors, and the audience believes that there's going to be real competition. And I can certainly understand if somebody came to me right now and said, Ryan Garcia doesn't have any chance against Devin Haney because he's not prepared seriously the way Haney is. I could understand somebody saying that. We don't know if that's right. Maybe this is the right way for Ryan to prepare. We'll find out Saturday night.
There you go. What are your thoughts on the fight itself? How do you see it playing out?
Devin Haney has a credential toward the process of trying to prove that he's the best fighter in the world. And that credential is that he has a decision win over Vasily Lomachenko in Las Vegas. In my last several years calling fights on HBO, I was very certain that Lomachenko was the premier technician in the sport. So for Haney to get a decision win against him as he did in Las Vegas, convince high-quality judges there that he was better than Lomachenko that night, that's quite a credential. And I asked Devin in an interview a couple days ago, is it your goal to be seen as the number one pound-for-pound fighter? And he said, yes, that's what we're working on. We want for me to be seen as the best fighter in the world. So he's part of the way there. So he has serious motivation. So he has a very meaningful goal. So he has the talent to perhaps reach that goal. All of that is clear. Ryan Garcia, based on everything I've seen, he has to land the left hook to upset the apple cart here. He's got the power and the strength to perhaps change the course of events if he can land that left hook. But barring that, he's likely to get outboxed by a better technician.
Got it. So let's say Haney wins. The landscape at 140 at this current moment is quite interesting, right? You have Tio, you've got Pitbull, and you've got Subriel. Do you see Haney being able to beat those guys, or him having potentially a tough matchup against one of them stylistically?
The great boxer can beat anybody. The great technician has advantages against punchers, against almost any other form of fighter. Doesn't mean he's going to win all the fights, but I could certainly see Haney, in effect, cleaning out the 140-pound division over a period of the next few years. He keeps his head together, he keeps his routine together, he stays in a good training situation. All those things come into place for him. Yeah, I could see that scenario.
There you go.
I'm
Switching.
not saying it's going to happen. I just say that I can see it.
Gotcha. So switching gears a little bit, in a couple weeks here we got Canelo-Munguia. What are your thoughts on that fight, and how do you see it playing out?
Well, you know, in my last few years of calling fights on HBO, I nurtured and curated Munguia's career. He was a rising force at the time who became an attraction on HBO because he was the most exciting kind of fighter. The most exciting kind of fighter is somebody who hits and gets hit. You mentioned Pitbull Cruz. Hits and gets hit. And that's really what novice fans most want to see. So Munguia hits and gets hit. And for a long time, Canelo seemed dismissive of him. Seemed to be saying, you know, what's the point of fighting Munguia? He's not really a serious competitor. Now he has chosen to fight against Munguia. And that tells us that Canelo trusts his chin. I think his chin is maybe the best in the sport, and believes that he can prove that chin against a guy whose real chance to beat him is not that he's going to outbox him, but that he's going to hurt him. So I think Munguia would have to hurt Canelo to beat him. I think Canelo is probably not in a situation yet where he would be vulnerable to that, and I think that Canelo winds up getting a victory that adds to his resume as he continues to build credibility while he fends off the public's desire for him to fight David Benavidez.
My very next question, great segue. What do you think about the fact that he did not take that fight? And what do you think it says about him or his legacy, if anything at all?
From what I've seen of Benavidez, I'm not rushing to fight him either. I totally understand putting aside a Benavidez fight and waiting to see how all of that continues to play out before going with it. Does it mean he's scared of Benavidez? No. It means he's a smart businessman. And so if Canelo can beat Munguia, that adds fan base to what he's already got. That shows Tijuana people, for instance, hey, a fighter from Guadalajara can beat a fighter from Tijuana, and makes Benavidez wait and wait anxiously for the opportunity to get at him.
Gotcha. Okay, so obviously in July there's been big news about a fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, and obviously you have a lot of history covering Mike fights. What are your thoughts about that fight, about its legitimacy and its potential outcome? How do you see it going?
It's not a legitimate boxing match in my view. It's a social media character, a social media attraction, Jake Paul, against a 57, 58-year-old former champion. I do have a long history with Mike, and we're friends. I love him. Anytime a 57 or 58-year-old guy gets into the ring, there's an added level of concern about his well-being. So my primary concern is that I don't want Mike to get hurt. But in my heart of hearts, I think that Mike still has a boxing background and boxing skills. The sport is so highly technical. There are nuances beyond nuances, et cetera, et cetera. If you pin me to the wall and say, what do you expect is going to happen? My expectation is that Mike is going to knock Jake Paul out.
There you go. So before I let you go here, Jim, and we appreciate your time. Obviously, you're a busy man, but it seems like you're going to be covering the Haneys Garcia fight, doing commentary on PPV.com. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, PPV.com is a new form of communication. Before I was asked to do this, I was teaching a media course at the University of North Carolina, and one of the big topics that we talked about in the course was how the evolution of technology and business forms and personnel and executives, et cetera, can prompt differences in the way stories are told. Here is a difference in the way the story is told. I used to sit at ringside and talk about what I saw in the fight. Now I type text into a computer. And working with me, there's a boxing writer, in this case, Lance Pugmire of the Los Angeles Times, and he types texts into the computer. We trade observation. And everybody who buys the fight on pay-per-view can opt into ppv.com and also be a part of the text discussion. So it's a whole new stream of communication about fights. I'm honored to be a part of its development. 30 years from now, it will be institutionalized and everybody will do it, and all of us will be chatting together about the fight while we watch it.
I know the fans are excited to hear from you in whatever medium it comes through, and we appreciate you on Fight Hype. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Great pleasure.
Same here.